Today on CityCast Seattle, Washingtonians' thoughts on the millionaires tax, Katie Wilson's $250 fine, vinyl seats and Wi-Fi on public transit, and another movie theater closure. But first, at the beginning of Governor Bob Ferguson's State of the State address on Tuesday, yes, that's somehow really what it's called, he invited a reverend to share prayers from her congregation and also invited Washington's poet laureate Derek Sheffield to read a poem. So I want to know, Chase Hutchinson, critic and journalist at the Seattle Times and contributor to KOW, if you had to give a big address, who would your opener be?
I mean, I feel like a poet is such an artistic way to start. I don't know what else you can do besides that. I would probably similarly pick a local poet laureate. But would they read their own poem is the question, or do they read someone else's poem? Like, what does the programming look like?
I think if you were the one giving the address, you would have some agency to decide.
That's a good question. I'd leave it up to them. Whatever poem they wanted to choose,
Oh,
I'd
come
go poet.
on. Come on. I can't with this.
Or you know what? I'll give an actual answer, and this is maybe cheating. I would pick Kyle MacLachlan. A local icon, because we, the Seattle film critics, had given him an award last year, and he is just such a pro. He is a charismatic, charming, compassionate fellow. That's who I would pick. He now also has a podcast too, so he's used to gabbing a lot. That's my actual answer.
Creative producer Liam Billingham, you said that Chase's initial answer is a cop-out, so who would you choose? Who would be your opener?
I would not choose local Seattle native, but a frequent Seattle visitor, Conan O'Brien, to set me up at the beginning of the show, because I feel like getting
like
some
a stand-up
good bits.
routine or what?
Yeah, I want like a 5-minute stand-up routine from Conan O'Brien.
Okay. That sounds good.
I think so.
All right, well, let's transition into the news. I feel like we've got kind of a grab bag of political headlines here. So the first is that pressure is mounting on city council to do something about ICE locally. So on Tuesday, a group of citizens, some of whom are a part of the Seattle Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, also a group of folks who were accompanied by former council member Kashama Sawant, appeared at a city council meeting. So the members of the Alliance wrote a letter which urged the council to protect citizens against ICE. They had some specific demands, including that the city end cooperation with ICE, and that they shut down surveillance cameras in Soto, Capitol Hill, and the International District, and that they investigate ICE agents for any legal violations. So a note on those surveillance cameras, if you all might remember, the surveillance pilot program began last year with cameras downtown, up north on Aurora Ave, in Pioneer Square, and in the International District. And an ordinance was passed by the council in September expanding that program with more cameras to be installed in the Central District, the stadium region ahead of FIFA coming to town in the summer, and the Capitol Hill nightlife corridor. But as far as I understand it, they have not been installed yet. Also, according to the city, the data can be stored up to 30 days, and the official policy is that SPD does not and will not participate in immigration enforcement, but may be compelled to share information under federal law. So Hollingsworth had agreed to meet with the Alliance, but on Wednesday, the group posted on Instagram that Hollingsworth and the council had not read the letter that they had written with their demands. And the group then declined that meeting, saying, quote, "We will not waste our time." And also that platitudes are no longer acceptable. Now is the time for action. Had you all heard this news?
I had not, but it goes to show we have a reading problem in America. American literacy. Nobody reads anymore. They didn't even read the letter. What are we doing?
I mean, to be fair, I do wonder if there were other council
I know.
council duties that they had, but also in support of the alliance, I read the letter this morning and it took me about 2 minutes, so it's quite short.
Now,
What do you all make of the protesters' demands?
I think they're perfectly reasonable demands and they should be implemented. I just worry that the city has actually limited control over what's happening here. I mean, the government is not interested in city oversight or being involved. They just want local officials to get out of their way.
I think they're a reflection of, I had seen this poll from YouGov and The Economist, hardly your big lefty poll publications, that was saying a majority, or at least a plurality of Americans are supporting the abolition of ICE, which for folks that have been following this for years, that has been a rallying cry for a long time, but is starting to become more and more of a urgent demand. And I think people are coming to their governments and trying to carry forward that ethos as much as they can. But like you said, Liam, it's also going to be something that is on a much bigger countrywide level that these conversations will have to take place as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's good to. In the immediate short term, I don't know what local city officials can do. In the long term, I think advocating for what I think is a very, in my opinion, the exact right approach, which is the abolition of ICE, that is the right tack to take. And I think these protesters are right. It's just I think there's limited real control that can happen in this moment.
And I think that's what I listened to the New York Times Ezra Klein podcast from last week. And what they talked about is the unfortunate moment we're in can be that democracy moves slow to address crises, but breaking democracy and the rise of fascism can move very fast because it's very easy to break and kind of encroach upon people's rights. And sometimes the institutions and structures we build don't move fast enough. And so,
by design, to some extent, right?
By design, to some extent, but it's obviously going to be a pretty existential needing to find things that can move fast where they can be pushed along, so to speak.
This does feel like a moment where there can be some benefit to all being on the same page about what we want our local officials to be doing in our name. I do wonder, I always come back to this question of what is the functional benefit versus what is the symbolic benefit. And in this particular situation, I'm not sure what the calculus is.
The thing I'm compelled by, and I feel like Jamel Bowie, he has made the case that he thinks narratives and symbolic meaning are not nothing. That
Right.
you can begin to build momentum and do things that push the needle and develop sort of a political will to then make tangible solutions. Obviously, doing something symbolically doesn't change the like on the ground pragmatic things, but politics is about creating narratives. It's
Yes.
about trying to rally people around an issue. And so then when the moment comes or when you begin to find yourself able to tangibly change things, you have the support to do so. People are gonna disagree about that a lot, but that's kind of the argument that I think is an interesting one as well.
Well, there's an interesting reflection on that dealing with the mayor of Minneapolis, who in 2020 did not agree with defund the, and he faced some political pushback for that. But now, at least the prevailing political winds, no matter where you stand on them, are sort of more in line with what he thought, and that got him back into office. And, you know, he's famous for saying, get the fuck out of our city last week, which I think is like going to, when we're looking back on this moment, hopefully from a much safer position for our neighbors, we will look at that as a rallying cry for how people felt in the moment. Get the fuck out of our city, which is, I think, how, at least in my opinion, reasonable people feel right now.
Well, speaking of mayors, to bring it back here to Seattle, another piece of political news, the Capitol Hill Seattle blog just posted this morning about how Katie Wilson's campaign was fined $250 by the Seattle Ethics Elections Commission director for failing to report that her parents had made an in-kind contribution to her for childcare. So you all might remember during the mayoral campaign, KUOW reported that Katie Wilson's parents had helped her with childcare. It kicked off this whole bigger discussion, which some people have been calling Momgate. I will say I hate that name, but I understand where it comes from. It kicked off this bigger conversation about it was like a Rorschach test in my view.
Mm-hmm.
Some people used it to talk about Katie Wilson's identity, right? Like she gets help from her parents. Like, why should we have a mayor that gets money from her parents? Other folks were talking about that as a way to show the city's affordability issues, the high cost of childcare. I think we talked about it here on this very podcast. A lot of millennials, I think, found that bit of information relatable.
I did.
Or at least familiar. Yeah, I was going to say, resident dad Liam.
Hello, it's me, resident dad. Yeah, I mean, I just want to be clear that for one child, that 10 grand may have funded 4 months of her kid's childcare, just to give you a sense of the cost of childcare in this city. I mean, depending, of course, on how long she's in the program, how many hours, whatever the case is, but like, it's expensive.
When this news was first coming out, that like the initial reporting on this, I think, did bring a valuable conversation to the surface, and then nobody was really having that conversation, which is, even if a mayoral candidate is struggling with this and looking to her parents, what does the everyday Seattle family have to think about, or Seattle parent have to think about? And hopefully, in addition to all of the, you said it was Momgate. I feel like we need to not put gates on the end of everything. I know.
Yeah, we did it once in the 70s and it stuck.
We've been doing it for 50 years and we need to stop.
This is late, but out for 2026, gate at the end of every single
I feel
thing.
like at some point textbooks are going to call the Civil War State Gate or something that.
No.
Like it's just going to be some terrible,
no.
terrible backwards. Yeah, no, I agree. Let's stop using gate to refer to things.
Yes. So to your point, Liam, that $10,000 does not actually make that big a dent in things. There was a report in the Seattle Times in October of last year that found that the median annual cost of childcare, if you're taking your kid to a center, is roughly $30K if you've got an infant and $26K for a toddler.
Yep.
I mean, and that's the median. I am curious how this news has come out now. Do you all think that Katie Wilson's parents' help with childcare should qualify as a campaign contribution?
No, I don't think so. I think it's too slippery of a question, and I think like there needs to be real clarity on that. And I really would be curious. Maybe we can do some additional reporting to figure out like why that qualifies in their mind as a campaign contribution. Because did they write a check to her campaign? I feel like no. I feel like they probably were like, here's a check to you. There's a lot of mysterious questions to me that maybe have been answered, but this news just broke as we were recording. So there's still stuff in the air.
What you don't realize is that the daycare, they were all making Wilson signs secretly.
You don't want a toddler making your sign. I don't know if you guys have seen a toddler's writing recently, but it's pretty bad.
I mean, I do just wonder how often this has happened in the past. It'll be interesting to see, too, if this is enforced in the future, or if maybe candidates just will be tighter-lipped about it. Political wins have maybe contributed to that fine being levied. The letter that has been posted on the Capitol Hill Seattle blog is dated November 24th. So a few weeks after the conclusion of that campaign. $250 feels both like, 2
days of daycare. Actually, yeah, just to be clear. So
it feels less like a fine that is meant to hurt and more like a symbolic fine in a way.
Yeah, and that's what the letter notes further in, is that this is the first time something like this has arisen. and there is a warning of like stiffer penalties to come in the future if something like this were to happen again. But it sounds like Wilson worked with them and everything is like cool. It again is just
Everything's
more
cool.
Everything's cool.
Guys, are
Don't
we
worry,
cool?
guys.
Katie Wilson to the mom gate people. Are we cool now? Yeah. Until she asks her parents to pay the $250.
I know.
It's fined again, right?
It just becomes a domino effect.
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right. Well, continuing on in more money talk, new survey that just came out of the research firm DHM. They surveyed 500 Washingtonians, and they found that 61% supported the so-called millionaires tax, so a 9.9% tax on people making more than $1 million a year. They found that people with annual incomes above $150,000, people with a college degree, and Democrats were more likely to favor that, but that a majority of people across parties, so 71% of Democrats, 54% of Republicans, and 52% of independents supported it. Are you all surprised to hear that, or are you not surprised to hear this?
I mean, we were just talking about the cost of childcare and something where a younger generation or a current generation, I shouldn't just, because I know generational divides become a whole thing. It's very clearly that people are not able to get by with these like very basic fundamental things. And then we go to this next topic of, I wonder why people would maybe support a millionaire's tax to try and lift everybody up. I think these two things are interconnected. I was on KUOW years ago when there was a similar conversation being had around this. And I think some of it is that the pandemic shifted everyone's perspective on this. It really brought into focus, because there was the whole time during the pandemic of, well, we're all in this together. And I'm like, some people are being hit harder than others, and
some
that
people
there were
are riding this out in their second homes, and some of us are, just in apartments
living. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it exposed the kind of already existing fault lines that people were feeling in their day to day that then became that much more painful. Mm-hmm. And so I think we're seeing the outcome of that. Whether what kind of ends up happening with this specific proposal, who knows? But very clearly, there's public support for taking this kind of action.
Yeah, and I think we live in a very divided city with a lot of really rich people, very, very obscenely rich people. And you mentioned earlier sort of political narratives, Chase, and I think that one thing that sort of the left has done is made this feel reasonable. I mean, when Ferguson is coming out and saying he's open to it, and he's a pretty moderate-ish Democrat, like, it means that they're doing a good job of building long-term consideration for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's that old Overton window, to put a term to everything that you're talking about, which is just like what is considered politically acceptable or feasible. That's constantly shifting, and people pushing it one way or the other.
Yeah.
In for better and worse.
Well, we'll see if we actually end up passing that, but we are many steps away from that. But it's interesting to know, nonetheless, that it seems like a majority of Washingtonians, if the survey is representative of our state, that the majority of folks actually would be in favor of that. All right, let's leave it there for now. And when we come back, we're going to talk about some changes to public transit. So this week, Sound Transit announced that we are going to be seeing more vinyl seats on light rail. So if you all have been on light rail lately, you've probably seen that we have cloth seats. The idea of switching to vinyl seats is that it could be cleaner, so require less maintenance. It might be easier to install, according to Sound Transit. And it seems like, generally speaking, people just like it better, according to surveys that they did. So vinyl seats earned the highest rating out of 5. It got 4 points out of 5, as opposed to about 3 for cloth. And so they started piloting this back in 2024. Have you all seen any of these vinyl seats yet? I personally had not, but
I think it could be one of those things where not noticing it is a sign of success. To where
true.
it wasn't like you were like, oh, this looks beat up or kind of worn down or not very clean. It's just like, I just sit down and everything's going well. So now I'm going to be keeping an eye out for those vinyl seats.
Yes, I have not seen them, but I will say that when we got our car, we were like, oh, should we pay to get the leather, the slightly nicer leather seats because like it's more expensive? Let's just do the cloth. And my sister, who has children, was like, do not get cloth seats, like especially with children. Like they are easier to clean. You know what I mean? Like it, and I think that matters. I think when you get on the train or one of these, and you look down and like the seat's gross, like it just doesn't make you feel good about the state of transit. So it feels like cleanliness is a understandably important part of people's comfortability on a train.
You know that our area is truly wealthy when we're going to get leather seats on that light rail. Yeah, I mean, before I lived here, I lived in the Bay Area, and Bart had cloth seats back then, and I was spending 2 hours on public transit every day, and man, were those seats gross. They smelled bad, they were often stained, and you just you can't think too hard about it, but I had kind of a policy of like, change clothes when you get home because you've been sitting on these gross cloth seats. And
cloth tells a story of coffee cups or whatever else like you happen to be eating. Like
coffee is like the most benign liquid that could be involved here. But yeah, they made the switch to vinyl seats near the end of my time in the Bay Area, and I was a little sad I didn't get to enjoy it. And then I was thrilled when I moved here and discovered that we had also a robust and growing public transit system, but was like, oh man, we're going back to cloth seats. Okay.
Yeah, it's gross.
But I'm glad we are now moving forward with the vinyl. So another piece of transit news is that we may soon be getting more Wi-Fi on Washington State ferries. So apparently, like 10 years ago, they had a pilot program with Boingo. You all might remember Boingo from also being the carrier of Wi-Fi at a lot of airports and often on airplanes.
Was that a service provider to like a search engine?
Was it? No.
No, I'm thinking of Bing. Apologies. I'm thinking of Bing.
Oh, wow. That's a mortal sin here in the home of Microsoft.
I'm gonna get drunk.
yeah. Cancel Liam, everyone, for getting Boingo.
Hey, weird. My phone service is down.
So I remember actually back when the ferries did have Boingo Wi-Fi, and I guess now we might be seeing more service on our ferries. How do you all feel about having more Wi-Fi on ferries?
I'm of two minds about it. Firstly, Boingo, it makes me think of Oringo Boingo. So a whole other weird separate thing about why they're calling it.
To be fair, I don't think that the new program is Boingo.
Okay, that's fair. That's
Boingo's fun to say. Just Boingo, that's nice. Boingo, boingo, boingo.
I like to be not connected all the time. I feel like there was the subway take that was about this, where it's like we need to just not be always available to connect to Wi-Fi all the time, because then in your head you're like, oh, I could be working, I could be sending emails, I could be doing all these things, when it's like, look outside. You're on the ferry. The weather's beautiful. You can take it in. You can read a book. People read books. You can still do that. Again, we need more reading. But if it's an option and people want to have it, I also understand that as well. Because sometimes people do need to have things kind of going, or like actual connection for like checking in on things. I don't know. It could go either way. I would just say,
in the words of Subway Takes Guy, 100% agree. But I will play devil's advocate here for a second, because there has been exactly one time that I've been on the ferry where I needed to file edits to a piece that I was writing, and there was no Wi-Fi, and I really didn't expect that for some reason. I was like, well, I am sailing across a large body of water right now. I don't understand why I'm entitled to have Wi-Fi here, but I do really need it. And I'm thinking about all the folks who commute between the islands and Seattle for work, where I could see that actually being a really useful tool.
My empathy for the fellow journalism struggle of this is a thing I'm getting edits back on, or I need to like make a change. That's the one thing I will never be able to forget. I'm about to go to a film festival where Wi-Fi can sometimes be up or down. And so, yeah, I get that. I do sometimes use a hotspot, but I don't know if that's always like easy. And this could just be another way to kind of, in the event that you need it, my fellow underpaid, overworked journalists trying to get a piece in, that then I understand that. I can't be too mad about that.
Yeah, and I think there's a quality of life thing that it can offer people where they're like, oh, okay, I have a friend that commutes from Bremerton to Ballard every day, or 4 days a week, and like his job is mostly an in-person job, and I think if he doesn't have to stay at his office to write emails at the end of the day, and he can do it on the ferry over like a meal or something. I think that allows people. Also, I'm really on Dad Island on this episode, but I'll also say like if you're in a position where you're like coming back on the ferry and you have to pick up your kids and the ferry's delayed or whatever, you can still get a message out to your daycare or whatever. Like just those kinds of like when I was on the ferry recently, I was like, oh, my phone has no service. That didn't affect me because everyone I would need to be in touch with was around me at that moment. I'll also say that like the view's not going away because there's Wi-Fi. So, I think people can just try to acknowledge like, oh, I'll put my phone down and look out the window. But I do agree. I remember living the first time in New York City, I got on the subway and noticed that I had Wi-Fi. There was the moment of like, oh, cool. And also the moment of like, oh, another place that I can just look at my phone, which isn't ideal because that used to be a place I would read a book. Right?
Yeah. No, I like when a plane's Wi-Fi is down because then I can be like, whoops, sorry, can't do that. Also don't want to pay $20 for this or whatever. But so to round things out, I wanted
should be free. Wi-Fi should be a public utility.
To round things out, I wanted to address a transit-related question that we got from a listener named Nori, who asks, are there transportation resources available like vouchers or passes for bus or light rail for flood victims? I will say that in our search, we did not find specific vouchers for people who are in the midst of flood recovery. However, there is a program called Metro Flex, which runs in King County in a lot of the areas that have been affected by flooding. For that service, you can basically get an on-demand minivan to take you where you need to go. If you go to the King County website, or if you just search for Metroflex, you can get access to that in, specifically, I'm thinking of, the Renton area, and parts of Issaquah and Sammamish as well, if that's helpful to you. You also, through King County, can get a subsidized pass if you are receiving certain government assistance through certain programs, which include temporary assistance for needy families, so TNAF. If you are getting housing and essential needs help, there's a full list available on the King County website, and I encourage you to go take a look if you or anyone else wants a subsidized pass. And if you're listening and you work for the county, the city, any transit agency, and of specific transportation resources available for folks who are recovering from the flood, please do let us know. You can call us at 206-880-3931, or you can text us. You can also email us at seattle@citycast.fm. And Nori, thank you for your question.
We love questions. Keep them coming.
Questions.
We love you guys, and we love questions.
Yay.
Questions.
Reach out from your vinyl seat with your Wi-Fi that you got going.
See?
Yeah. All right, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about various theater news here in Seattle. All right, this is a section that I'm going to just be affectionately calling the Chase Corner because we're talking about stuff Chase cares about.
Could also call it to cutting to the chase because I'll be quick.
Let's brainstorm names. That's good. No, that's good. That's good.
All right, we are calling it cutting it to the chase.
Cut to the chase.
One of the pieces of news that came up this week, unfortunately, another theater closing, the Varsity in the U District. What is going on with specifically theater closures in the U District? I feel like we've lost several in the last year here.
It is now that there are no movie theaters in the U District. The Grand Illusion was a big one that was lost.
Mm-hmm.
The Varsity now going. I did talk to some people about the Varsity, and the unfortunate thing I heard from many people was it had already looked like it was closed from the outside,
no.
which is not a good sign. But now the news is official that for those students who are trying to go out and see movies, there's nothing there for them. There's other theaters in the city, obviously, but as always, like questions of access and easy ways to experience that's going to be a big hit.
I also think the theater tickets were a little cheaper at the Varsity, right, than they were at, like, say, an AMC.
I think possibly, yeah.
Well, then the AMC closed too, but that was a few years ago, I believe.
Yeah, it's been a cascading of kind of closures around that area. There's obviously always hopes that people can come back in. The Varsity made clear to say all the equipment is being left there. But from folks I have talked to, that's a nice thing to say, but it's easier said than done to get a theater back off the ground once something closes up. There would be many kind of logistical challenges there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
What is it about is it something about the U District that we feel like is playing a role here?
I don't think so. I think these are challenges that every theater is facing. Because one of the things I was talking with folks about yesterday, because I was just curious, because I'm based in Tacoma, and at the same time the Varsity news was coming out, the Grand Cinema in Tacoma announced that they had met this year-end fundraising goal, and we're going to be improving the facilities. And in Billingham, the Pickford has been doing well. And I was wondering, is it a Seattle thing? And that's kind of what I had heard from some people. It's just that costs are higher and that it's not like people aren't trying to figure out solutions to these things. But as everything gets more expensive, people have said we should be more aware that food costs also impact sometimes theater. Margins get smaller. The streaming impact is also a thing, was something that was noted by the Varsity folks. It's a lot.
Well, at the same time, Scarecrow met its SOS fund this week. So, like, and which is, right down the street from the Varsity. So, like, the Scarecrow seems to be thriving, and makes you wonder, like, maybe more people are watching physical media, but they're also not leaving their homes to do it.
Yeah. Well, how much did the Scarecrow raise?
$1.8 million.
Amazing.
Incredible.
And I will say there are folks I've talked to that said, like, you can't always do that sort of, like, SOS type of fundraising very frequently. And I think the Scarecrow situation is a little different in that there is no one like Scarecrow.
True.
Not only in the city and the state, but, like, in the country. They are a very rare, special type of service. There are still other theaters in Seattle, which I would love to talk a little bit about some of the good stuff folks got going. But yeah, the Varsity situation is that there wasn't any sort of a attempt made to kind of do that fundraising, whether that's because because the company that owns the Varsity still has other theaters. It's not like it's done, but this theater, as of this week, is going to be not showing movies anymore.
As of today, when this episode comes out.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, another one bites the dust. Maybe someone will pick it up. All the equipment's still in there. Pick it up, someone. Mackenzie Scott. Does Mackenzie Scott still
Should we
live
do
around
it?
here?
Yeah.
Yeah,
let's
I
do
don't know
it.
if I have quite that funding.
Yeah.
There are people that talk about like, can we continually count on these sort of like wealthy people? I won't say Mackenzie Scott is a celebrity, but I'll say these wealthy local donors aren't really showing up for many of these organizations in the same way that they used to.
Well, Paul Allen did,
Yeah,
and then,
right.
This is
But
when
that-
I, in fact, announced that I truly am a millionaire and I'm going to buy.
use your millionaire powers, Liam, please.
Yeah.
All right. In other news and cut to the chase, Chase, I know you recently reviewed the upcoming Game of Thrones prequel. So I was trying to think of when Game of Thrones ended. I feel like that was now, gosh, at least
400 years ago.
yeah. And yet, I think it's had such a huge cultural impact. Like here in Seattle, we have there's an Ice Walker escape room in Redmond. There's a candlelight concert happening here in town that features music from Game of Thrones and also Lord of the Rings. So like, it's been years, but the people in Seattle are still, eating up media that is related to Game of Thrones. So Chase, you got this kind of exclusive look at the prequel. What did you think of it?
I don't know if I can say exclusive look because every other reviewer in the country has also seen all of the show.
Us peons think of
Okay,
it as
okay.
exclusive.
Us
So
regulars.
take the W there.
I will say there's no sort of White Walkers in the same way that there was in the original, because this is an intentionally smaller scale look at this world, which is what makes it interesting to me. It feels very different. It's not just all of these royal families fighting for power. It's what did I call him? He was the himbo hedge knight with a heart of gold. He is just this guy who's just kind of trying
How I
to
describe
find
myself. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. You don't look that different, you could be his
Hey,
his
we
cousin.
can be brothers according
Yeah,
to
I
many
know.
people. So
But no, I think this will be of interest, especially with you talking about how there are people still excited about Game of Thrones, and that's why there will be more Game of Thrones until all of us die. But I think this one is a fun one. There are some people that are fed up with it. I've heard, like, I don't want to hear Game of Thrones ever again, in which case, don't watch it.
I
Watch
feel
The Pit.
so burned by it.
I think there's almost something more valuable about kind of this than the main series because it feels unburdened from all of that. Like, I feel like everyone's expectations for that are going to be kind of weighing on it. I obviously hope for everyone that does come, but this is like a nice, refreshing, small scale, kind of almost like a side quest within it that ends up becoming connected to more important things. It's set 100 years before the events of the main series, has a bald boy named Egg who's very adorable.
Egg.
It's good. His name is Egg. I like it.
Egg.
should I give my hot take on Game of Thrones?
Please.
So hopefully we go viral. I quit the first time a dragon showed up in season 2.
Ooh.
I was like, I'm out. Don't care. Don't care about dragons. I enjoyed the
Honestly-
political intrigue of the first season a lot.
Yes.
And when they killed, spoilers for Game of Thrones, when they killed Sean Bean, I was like, wow, this show is doing it. And then the dragon showed up and I was like, I'm out. I don't care anymore.
Then this might be the show for you. There are no dragons. There's like a theatrical performance interpreting dragons, but dragons are not the central
Theater.
part of this.
This is actually, this speak. What if I'm the guy that's like, actually, the best Game of Thrones show is the quotidian theater one that came out 10 years after the original series.
It could be. Some people, I'm not alone in this. Some people have said this might be the best. It's still early, obviously, because it's a very short kind of first season, but it doesn't feel quite as like bogged down. Like the House of the Dragon series, I liked for the most part, but the way that one wrapped up, it's like, oh, there's so much more and like so many like
Weighed down by the
bigs.
mythology. And the...
Yeah.
I feel like if there's any reason I would watch this, it would be for the nostalgia of the time when Game of Thrones was popular. Like,
Oh yeah.
I mean, was that our last piece of monoculture? Like, it felt like everyone was talking about it. I remember going to like watch parties where everyone was like trying to use their like dad's friends, cousins HBO login, and then like, you know, too many people were on the login and like we couldn't get it, and it was like this whole crisis. Like, everyone was actually watching it in real time and talking about it, and I feel like it's very rare to have that kind of show anymore.
We gotta get you into the pit, Jane. We gotta have you take a ride down to the pit. It's
I
like
quit that when the dragon showed up too. I was like, that's enough.
I'm telling you, the pit may heal your soul, give you hope.
Okay.
Wow. What
Well,
a sterling recommendation.
Let's leave it there for now. I guess I gotta go check out the pit. That's all for today here at CityCast Seattle. Chase, thank you for joining us for Cut to the Chase.
Thanks for having me. Yes.
And Liam, thank you for rowing the dad boat for us as well.
Everyone stop moving back there and calm down.
I'm your host, Jane Sihu, and listeners, thank you for joining us today. And remember, we want to hear from you. Send us your news tips, your questions, your hot goss, your thoughts about... Actually, you know what? I don't really want to hear your thoughts about Game of Thrones. If you have thoughts about our new vinyl seats or Wi-Fi on ferries, please send it our way. Also, again, if you have information about transit options for people who are recovering from the flood, do get in touch. You can always send us an email at seattle@citycast.fm. You can also text or leave a voicemail at 206-880-3931. You can get more local news and events delivered to your inbox by subscribing to our newsletter. Just go to seattle.citycast.fm. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen, and leave us a little review. It is truly, truly, really helpful. All right, until next time, see ya, Seattle.